got the email from Gary Monday. He came down yesterday and actually brought me paperwork. I had a couple questions about that. Really don't feel like I had adequate time, I hadn't had time to discuss with my lawyer because I hadn't had time to do anything. But one of the questions was a variance. What you had mentioned was when we discussed it, that only goes with me owning the property. If I go to sell the property, then they won't be able to park cars unless they come and get a variance.
That's correct.
And so they would have to go through the whole process. That variance, as long as I own the property, the variance is there. Or is that as long as I just run the body shop? If I lease that building out to somebody, would that go with the property? Leasing it out since I still own the property.
The property goes, the residential is gonna remain residential. And it's gonna use, you're gonna use that property for your business. You lease the property out, that's a whole different scenario. You have wanted this for Cleves Auto Body, is that a true statement?
Correct.
So if you lease your building out, is that not changing the course of what you're gonna use that property
If
for?
I sell the business to somebody else, but lease them the building, it's still the same business there, but somebody else running it.
If they come in and they wanna do something different other than Cleves Auto Body, that changes that.
But that's what I'm saying. If I sell the business to somebody and they come back in to Cleves Auto Body, it still goes with the body shop.
You have two parcels of land.
Right.
You've combined those.
Correct.
You sell them individually, that's up to you. I mean,
No,
you
I'm
can't say
saying
how to run
if
a business.
I'm just saying if I leased it out, I'm not saying, you told me if I sell it, it's different.
Correct, so again, so if you're leasing it out, depending on what that lease is like and what you're gonna allow those people to use the property for, that's altogether different. You came looking for a variance originally, that's how I said it and talked to you about it, well, as opposed to a zone change. And that's what the commission voted on, was for the variance to allow you to do that under certain restrictions and stipulations. So now you're coming and saying, if I do this, is it the same thing that we want to do it for?
No, I was confused because it's been over a year. And if you go back to the emails, it was rezoning, but I thought that's what we had asked for and that's what we discussed and we explained it. And, like I said, I haven't had time to really discuss this because, at the end of the day, the variance is for me and I'm trying to get some clarification that if I lease it out, it's been Cleves Auto Body for 35, 40 years that I know of, if not longer, and it's always
So
been
what
a
kind of
body
business
shop.
would you do if you were to lease that parcel?
The same thing that's there, that's what the building's for. I mean, I wouldn't lease it out to somebody building boats or a landscape company. That changes what the thing is. I mean, the value in the building, value of leasing it out to a body shop, not what I would do, but I'm just trying to look towards the future.
You're asking me, you're asking Cleves, I say me, you're asking Cleves to make a hypothetical situation, if you do this, if you do that. Until that circumstance is, I can't answer that question. We offered, the commission voted unanimously to offer a variance. You're allowed to do your business, to park the cars on there as we discussed with the rest of the statement.
Yeah.
And so that's the variance that they said they felt was best suited, as opposed to just, giving the umbrella and saying we're gonna have it forever a business. Okay, we did this specifically because you and the residents came to agreement that this was something that you could all agree upon, correct?
Correct, I would make a
So
stipulation.
now you're asking if we lease this, which was never part of coming up to the commission, that you would lease this out.
Because, well, the paperwork says we were rezoning it, and then
No, absolutely not, because this is what the commission agreed to, and we talked about that, if the variance was granted.
It's not a rezoning.
It's not a rezoning, that's true.
But
It's still gonna be R. It's still gonna be zoned for R. But a variance has been issued.
A variance has been issued so that he can continue, park the cars there within reason, the restrictions that they agreed to with the residents, so that Eric could do his
But
business.
the zoning is not being
The
changed.
zoning is not being changed.
yes, my confusion was all the paperwork said we were rezoning, and then I get the thing Monday and it says we're doing variance. And everything discussed in the
Well,
meeting, because
the
I mentioned to
commission-
you, I thought that's what we were doing.
Well, let me put it to you this way, the commission denied the zoning and said they thought that the variance was best suited.
If the commission denied his zoning, his option is to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
He can do whatever he wants.
Because everything that I've read, I know we're going on old school here, but everything I've read, the only entity that can grant a variance is the Board of Zoning Appeals, and that's what it says.
That's not a true statement, because council is the
If you look in the book here, underneath the direction of the Board of Zoning Appeals, it's their authority to grant the variance.
But not to change the
but not to
zoning.
change zoning.
But
Council.
you're granting a variance, which isn't your authority. That's the authority of the Board of Zoning Appeals. Your authority is to deny his appeal, deny his,
It was denied that the variance was granted in lieu of a residential change.
but his option now is to appeal to the Board of Zoning
And
Appeals.
they can either uphold it or deny it, but in theory, council is the only one and has to allow for the variance to be adopted through the ordinance. The zoning commission makes a recommendation. They can't grant a variance and say that's what we're gonna do, because council has to vote on that.
But the variance has got to come through the Board of Zoning Appeals, then brought back to the council, not through planning.
Rob, probably understand.
Zoning appeals can issue the variance. The zoning commission and council can vote on giving him a variance on a conditional purpose as they're doing. And the variance does run with the land for that same and similar, because it's tied to the property, not him so much.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
So that's why the document is so specific in terms of what the conditional variance is based on. So if you sold the property, it runs with the land.
Variance stays with the
The
land.
variance runs with the land just like a covenant.
But if it's changed they can't come in and put a manufacturing facility.
No,
And that's why the conditional uses were so specific in the contracts.
That's what I'm saying.
So, but if he sold it and someone came in and ran an auto body shop, they would be able to do what he does on that same property.
I agree with that point, yes.
That's what I was saying.
Okay.
Because that affects the value. You said that if I left, then it would change, but I understand. The only thing really that, technically towards the manual, my understanding is if that changes from anything besides a body shop for a 2-year period, then it's no longer considered, grandfathered in.
Right, it's conditional upon the document and the negotiations you had with the planning commission and the vote of council, if they vote.
But the variance now stays with that property.
Correct. Variance runs with the land, just like a covenant or anything else, any easement, anything like that.
The official zoning is not being changed.
Correct.
And I don't need it to be, because I just need to know that.
And the legal concept is it's tied to a property for the specific purposes that it brings and talking to the residents, more or less, does it make sense for the community? Does it make sense for the residents? Does it make sense for the owner? And that is what's hammered out. So zoning doesn't have to be changed because that could change a lot of other things, but specifically for what he has asked and you guys have discussed, that's what's listed in that form.
And so if he wants to lease it and somehow that changes the course of business,
Well, that's not the conditional variance.
that's what I'm saying.
So if it's a body shop, as you said,
That's what it
then,
is.
and you sold it as a body shop or you leased it as a body shop, to do those same specific things within the conditions are valid.
And
If somebody else moved in there and wanted to build furniture, it's not the same building.
Correct.
And that's what it gets into, because it has to be used for that conditional use. That's why the body shop there is residential. That was my understanding.
Correct.
So if it changes or anything, or if it's closed down for over 2 years period, then it cannot be opened back up. That's what I understood in the planning.
Oh, it does say, it doesn't say that.
Anyway, I understand it, so that would be the answer to my question.
And Eric, again, if you don't like this decision, you're free to.
I'm fine if I can sell it with the thing, that's fine. I just, that was the only thing that I thought would affect the value, that if we got variance and I go to sell the property, they can't park cars back there, that kind of affects the value.
It runs with the land, just like if you issue someone easement across the property,
Right.
that runs with the land.
Right.
So the next person that buys the land that has an easement, yes, and the easement stays on the property anymore.
Right, so the property we're talking about it's on the alleyway and if it's residential, you can't build on it anyway because it doesn't put in the street address.
Yeah, I know where it's at, but for the specific purposes that are listed there, yes.
So
Do you have any other questions, Mr. Winter?
Does that mean, is that what you were looking for?
that was what I was looking for. And if you're answering legal questions, something I've mentioned to Chuck was, when I did have the property surveyed, so I could, put up a fence and permit and make sure everything's there. Part of the alley is on my property.
I saw that.
So I did not necessarily want to change anything, but I also want to, what do I do to make it known that I'm not, giving that away? That's my property.
Well, I mean, you'd have to actively give it away. Because I mean,
Well,
access.
sometimes there's things where somebody uses a piece of property for so long, they.
Well, adverse possession, but that's not, I mean, nobody's gonna build a house on your alley.
Right.
And live there exclusively, try and be the only person there. That's what you're gonna say. So you have to be, adverse possession, there's a lot of things you have to do it for 20 years, and it has to be exclusive, and you have to be outright with it. I mean, so they would have to really do something in the alley, like that's not done in the alley now, but people drive them down the alley, don't they? So it's not exclusive.
So Aaron, did you sign in already?
No, but do I need to? I just had a question about it.
Eric, I mean, again, the commission thought, when we were all talking, that there were conversations between you and the residents, that this was an agreement, so that's why we
No,
thought.
I'm agreeing in everything that was there.
Okay,
I just, all the paperwork I have, because like I told you, I got an email, and when we talked about it originally, we were gonna, to the appeals board, you had the appeals board. I told you when we all sat down, I just asked for some definitions. They're confusing. And, when you talk about the variance versus the, rezoning, I'm fine with the variance as long as it goes with the property. That was my, do I need a rezone? No, because if that goes with it, that's fine. I'm gonna do what I told the neighbor I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do actually more than you wrote in here. So, well, I wanna try to make the place look nice. That's what I've been trying to do, I wanna be part of the community, and I've served the community, and you can ask anybody that's been there. I've always taken care of people. And that's what I wanna continue to do.
One thing, because I've seen the document we talked about, one thing I have a problem with, I don't know whether it's just me, is the operation of your business depends on the approval of your neighbor. Is that how I'm reading this?
If the cars are stored there a certain amount.
I don't think there's any place in the Village of Cleves where one person has the right to tell a businessman how to do his business. And that's exactly what this document's saying.
I'm not sure it was just one person.
No, it's one person.
It was one person who was physically here or was there. But I don't believe she was the only person that had concerns.
My understanding, he has to get approval from that neighbor.
That was just negotiated in.
what Eric has agreed to do, that if these cars are operable and tagged and have, titles, are stored there for greater than 90 days, is to communicate that, okay?
But he has to get her approval.
All he does is have to say, look, I've got an issue with supply chain, and again, these complaints have to be valid. So again, if they come to us and say he's got them there for 6 years, I think that would be valid. If they come there and say, this has been here for 5 months, he's got a valid reason, there's not gonna be any violation. That's not the point of this.
I understand the point.
Well, that's not,
I also understand that what is being said. And I don't like the fact that one person can tell a businessman what he can do. And my biggest thing is, she's complaining about the cars that are on that lot, okay? Not being operational. Directly across the alleyway, I know for a fact because it's my property, there was a car sitting on that lot that are not runnable, and had tags on it, sat there for 5 years without one complaint. And then there's 3 cars on the other side of her property fence that she can see that I've been there for God only knows how long, there's no complaint. But now she has the ability to tell him how long he can have cars on the property.
I don't see.
Who has that?
Neighbor that's the neighbor that's next to their property
On the other side.
on the other side.
This doesn't,
No, you gotta see what,
Well, this is the one that I wrote that's gonna be passed by council, and it doesn't say anything like that. It doesn't say that you have to have, you have a permit.
What doesn't affect the accountability under the law. If those cars are there and they're in violation, they can be cited as well.
Yeah, and there's exceptions in here from supply chain issues and other things. So,
And we're not on
and
this,
then due process obviously comes to play.
it's ordinance 9-2024 in your packet for new council members. And I've read through the contractual agreement that doesn't indicate that.
the whole crux of this was the fact that they don't want a boneyard to be there, or a junkyard.
oh, I understand it. But
And
he's also stated numerous times that that's not what he does.
well, that's not what the property is. Doesn't show evidence of that. He's got scrap parts all over the facility.
Okay, who's the
And he
determiner?
has had scraps parts on that piece of property.
Who's the determiner what's scrap problem?
It'd be under-
See, this is what we're
It
getting.
would be as defined by Ohio Basic Code or the Ohio Revised Code. It would be investigated by our zoning and code enforcement office.
I know you wanted to speak.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, well, I'm trying to clean everything up. I've moved several vehicles, I'm moving several vehicles, Chuck was there when I was gonna load up the vehicle last night. You know, I'm not there to upset the neighbors, and like I said in the discussion, you know, when this originally happened, none of you were here. I couldn't ask no questions because there was nobody here. I just assumed because of driving around the 2 block area there, that, you know, I'm moving stuff around, I'm parking stuff, I'm getting rid of stuff, that it wasn't that big a deal. The only complaint I had that I mentioned in one of the meetings was I felt a little harassed. Because there's so many other things there that affect it, but that's not part of the problem. We're discussing what the problem is. I'm trying to take care of the problem, and that's what I wanna do. I don't wanna have any problems, you know, and if she would've came over and said something, I'd be like, all right, well, sorry, I'm trying to do this, and I would've done something. Okay, because you gotta be neighbors with everybody, and anybody that knows me, they know that that's one of my things. So I just,
Eric, just so you know, right after the last meeting, I went out, I took pictures of the entire area. It says on the council, they're quite aware of the issue. So it's not gonna be ignored. We've still got issues though within our village, how we're going to enforce things and ensure it's right for everybody. We're not there yet. We're still not.
I know, and I've been patient.
I know you have.
Okay, so, with the variance, can it be yanked out from underneath and it say, he takes a picture, or the neighbors take a picture every single day for 90 days to prove that this one car has been there for 91 days. Now, if it was zoned, that could not be yanked out from underneath him, and so I understand.
The variance, okay, so the variance is being passed on board, okay?
Okay.
And anytime that somebody would say that he's in violation of an ordinance, he's due process. So just because she takes a picture every single day and proves it's 91 days, it's the totality of circumstances. I mean, is it a junk car? Was he waiting on parts? Because it specifically says in there that exceptions can be made for supply chain issues, insurance issues, because sometimes they take forever to approve of a repair or they don't. So that's all in there. So it's not it's not an easy situation for the neighbor just to make a complaint that it's gone.
Okay, but to the question, is a variance able to be yanked out from someone where zoning?
It's a
is not?
conditional variance. If he doesn't work with the conditions that council has given him to make everybody happy, then if that's proven and it's a chronic issue, then a variance can be removed.
But what about zoning? Whether he follows the 90-day or not?
Well, it depends on how much stuff of that violates zoning any. I mean, depending on and I haven't read the entire zoning code, but I know that, property or, junk property and things like that, I don't believe allowed on
It's not,
yards and stuff anyway.
it's not.
So that stuff still, I mean, it applies to the business anyway.
Okay, and the question comes about, because he works on these older cars, some people that are bringing him a car do bring him a spare car, a parts car. Are we not allowed, is he not
That's
allowed?
part of the business.
So that is going to be allowed, even though it's not tagged for because they're buying both cars, or they bought a car and they bought a parts car. It's saying it's not titled in that one person's name, it's titled in the person's name that he bought it
I mean, if that's what he can show that he's doing,
from. Okay,
and that's part of the business, he's taking stuff off this car, putting it on this car, and then he's gonna get rid of the seat,
okay.
and that goes along with.
All right, because I just know from the last, when we were addressing all this to come up with this, that was pretty much a no-go.
Well, usually, I mean, that car, if you're taking stuff off of there, it's gonna be inside while you're doing that anyway.
Well, I
The other
mean,
cars?
I don't know if he can fit both cars inside the garage when he's taking a hood off to replace it, like say it's totaled in the front end. We have to take the hood off and the fenders off and stuff like that.
And if that's a fluid process, then, I mean, I don't see it as an issue. It's gonna have to be a violation of the condition, which means that a car's sitting there, it's not doing anything, he's not working on it. It doesn't run, it's not tagged, and it's unsightly,
Okay,
and it's leaking oil on the ground. I
okay,
mean, you gotta use common sense when you're enforcing the conditions of the document. I mean, you can only make them so tight, because if you make them too restrictive, then
that's what, I
You
mean,
go
that
give it a
was
dime.
kind of discussed, and it seemed like where they were coming from, that was not gonna be able, and I wanna know before he signs this, that, okay, yes, if he's working on a car and has a parts car there for it, that a customer bought, I just wanna make sure that's allowed before he signs this documentation.
I'm not sure. Agreed.
Eric doesn't sign anything.
Yeah.
You'll remember when we talked with the residents.
I understand that, and I'm a resident too,
Well,
and I wanna know that he's not getting into something that he's not gonna be able to come back from. And do you understand that he needs to do his business?
This is important. That's agreed to ahead of time. If something is wrong, okay, I believe you still have the option to go to court. Am I wrong in that?
yeah, but right now, the property that he's getting the variance on, he's not allowed to do that stuff anywhere.
But if it was zoned,
It's not.
It's not going to
And-
shut.
but if he went to court and got it done, but with a lawsuit, I mean, are
He
you
can
saying,
try.
but because Hamilton County has it as,
It doesn't matter what happens.
so if he's going with Hamilton County,
Hamilton County,
So-
Hamilton County is irrelevant.
Just like federal court, if federal court decides a case, somebody from Indiana sues somebody from Ohio, they have to use whatever state's law to decide the case, even though it's not. So it just because you go to Hamilton County courts doesn't mean you do Hamilton County zoning, because Cleves is an incorporated area and has their own zone. So a court would have to use
but
Cleves
we don't
zoning.
have a court.
But if you had a court here, it wouldn't decide that anyway.
Mayor's court would not
No,
decide.
it goes to common pleas. And that's the general division and the criminal felony division of Hamilton County courts. So this court here wouldn't have jurisdiction on that anyway.
Whether it was, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Whether it was zoned business or whether it's given a variance, the restrictions would be to such that
Okay, so are we gonna put it in here? I mean, because it says no junk cars, okay, what do you consider a junk car? Are we considering a parts car a junk car? I mean, because you're gonna have that in there,
we specifically talked about having cars that are parked there, that were customers' cars that were tagged, correct? Tagged?
Yes, but that's
Title?
what I'm talking about. I brought this up at the last meeting too. So it was discussed at the last meeting. I mean, there has to be a definition of, okay, if he has a parts car, is it going to be allowed there to use for a part for the one car that they're fixing? Not for multiple cars.
Is already answered.
If the car's got
So
parts,
I go with whatever you say and not what they're saying. Is that my
you can go with
understanding?
Council.
and you're saying that if a car is being used for parts, it's not junk.
Okay,
Junk is sitting in the junkyard.
okay, that's what I'm.
It's gonna be smashed. It's gonna be smashed and
Just trying to get that proof that it's not a junkyard, like, if he has, it's not gonna be tagged in that person's name that's bringing you an extra profit, there's no reason to say it.
And like I said, as long as it's reasonable for the process to occur if it's fluid.
Okay,
I mean, if it takes 2 years to take
so as long as he
parts off
takes,
this car and put them on another
as
car,
long as he
it's not
takes a
reasonable.
picture of this car and this car
I'm
together,
not saying
then
take a
there's-
picture of any.
but I mean, I know how some people can be.
Yes, and that's for Cleves and zoning and to realize that's how people are being. I mean, and that's something you deal with, I mean, you do with law enforcement, you start to realize who's complaining constantly and who's not. And
Okay.
are we really dealing with a problem? But you gotta use common sense. And if he can prove this is exactly what I'm doing, then he's given due process to do that.
All right, I
And
just
that
wanna
can be
make sure
determined.
that there's not gonna be, okay, well,
It had to be a valid complaint. That it just can't be someone that's arbitrary. You can sit there and laugh all you want, but if you wanna sit there and complain 5 times a week because cars are parked there, it's not gonna be taken seriously because we understand the nature of the business. But if he's gonna store junk cars there for 6 months to a year, like it's been.
I think there, Ohio Basic Code states in sort of junk vehicles, it outlines definition of junk vehicles, so I can give you that code, if you like to write it down. It's 97.06, but one of the, if you read section 2 here, one of the exceptions was unless the person having the right to possession of the property can establish the motor vehicle, it's part of a bona fide commercial operation,
okay,
so therefore would not be
so
considered
we
a
have,
junk
we're
vehicle.
going by that.
As long as he has proved that it's part of a commercial operation, which would be a parts car for
Okay.
our project. That's 97.06 of basic code.
Okay, I just wanna make sure that.
Anybody else wanna talk with the public? Thank you very much. Hopefully, when we get into the, actual, discussion on the ordinance, this will be short process. So, it's time for John to give us his maintenance report.
Over the past few weeks, with the dry weather, we've been able to do an extensive patching operation on Walmsley Avenue. We put down approximately 12 tons of blacktop on Walmsley to patch up all the cracks and potholes and areas that the residents were concerned about, that were rattling out. Our next targeted area is gonna be the unimproved portion of east of Morgan Street. That will be east of Walmsley, Westgate, back where Dean Becker lives back there. So, as soon as we get a chance within the next week or two, we'll be blacktop on that.
John, would you describe for the council, I don't know if you have any pictures, but that house is up farthest up. You describe how bad of a condition that with the rain.
It's like a buggy road. It's old blacktop, that's been run on for probably 30, 40 years. It's out of